The colony ship Times, Resilience Times, moved slowly through the dark space near the outer rim. Captain Tay stood on the bridge, watching the stars through the large windows. His crew had been traveling for 3 years, searching for a new world to call home. They were tired but hopeful. "Captain, we have something on sensors," said the navigation officer. "Multiple ships ahead. Unknown design." Tay leaned forward. This was it. First contact with alien life. Humanity had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now, they had their answer. "Open all communication channels," Tay ordered. "Let them know we come in peace." The alien ships were beautiful and strange. They had smooth surfaces that reflected light like mirrors. There were 12 of them, surrounding the human vessel. A message came through, translated by the ship's computer. "Unknown species. You have entered Coalition space. Identify yourselves." Tay spoke clearly into the microphone. "This is Captain Tay of the human colony ship Times. Resilience **. We are explorers from Earth. We mean no harm." There was a long pause. Then the alien voice returned. "Humans. We are the Vrex Empire, members of the Galactic Coalition. All new species must prove themselves worthy through the trial of combat. This is tradition. This is law." Tay felt his stomach tighten. "We don't want to fight. Can't we talk instead? Combat determines worth. Send one warrior to our arena ship. If your warrior wins, humanity may join the coalition. If your warrior loses, you must leave this sector forever." Tay looked at his crew. They looked back at him with worried faces. He had no choice. Refusing might mean war with this powerful empire. "We accept," Tay said finally. Lieutenant Hana stepped forward. She was the ship's security chief, trained in combat since childhood. "I'll go, Captain." "Are you sure?" Tay asked quietly. Hana nodded. "I'm the best fighter we have. I can do this." An hour later, Hana stood in a large circular room on the Vrex arena ship. The walls were made of metal, and bright lights shone from above. Hundreds of Vrex watched from seats all around. They looked like large insects with 4 arms and hard shells covering their bodies. A Vrex warrior entered from the opposite side. He was bigger than Hana, with thick armor plating and sharp claws on each hand. He carried a long blade that curved like a crescent moon. A voice spoke in the alien language, then in English. "The trial begins now. Fight with honor. Fight with courage. May the strongest warrior win." The Vrex warrior bowed deeply. He moved to the center of the arena slowly, his blade held high where everyone could see it. He announced something in his language. Hana understood immediately. He was telling her what attack he would use first. This was their honor code. You announced your moves. You gave your opponent a chance to defend. You fought fairly. Hana didn't bow. She didn't announce anything, she just moved. The Vrex warrior began his announced overhead strike. Hana wasn't there anymore. She had rolled to the side, grabbed a handful of dirt from the arena floor, and thrown it at the warrior's eyes. The crowd gasped. The warrior stumbled, temporarily blinded. Hana didn't wait. She kicked the back of his knee joint, where the armor was weakest. The warrior fell forward. Hana grabbed his blade arm and twisted it hard. The weapon clattered to the ground. "What is this?" the warrior shouted in confusion. "This is not proper combat." Hana swept his legs completely, dropping him on his back. She grabbed his own blade and pressed it against his throat. The whole thing took 15 seconds. The arena fell silent. No one moved. No one seemed to know what to do. Finally, a Vrex elder stood up. "The human wins." But this was disturbing. "You did not fight with honor." Hana stood up, breathing hard. "I fought to win. That's what humans do." Captain Tay was brought to the arena ship for a meeting with the Vrex Council. The elders sat in a half-circle, their insect faces unreadable. "Your species troubles us," one elder said. "In 10,000 years of the coalition, no species has fought like this. You used deception. You used the environment. You targeted weak points. This is not how civilized beings conduct combat. Tay chose his words carefully. On Earth, we learned to survive in a dangerous world. We had no thick armor. We had no poison. We had no great strength or speed. All we had was our ability to think and adapt. We learned that fighting isn't about honor. It's about survival. Another elder spoke. All species in the coalition follow the combat codes. The Vreks announce their strikes. The Krell fight with pure strength. The Sivesh use their speed. Each species has their way, their honor. But you change. You deceive. You do whatever works. This makes you unpredictable. Unpredictable things are dangerous. We can follow your rules, Tay offered. We can learn your ways. The first elder made a clicking sound. Can you? Your warrior didn't even think about our customs. She saw a fight and used every advantage she could find. This seems to be natural for humans, instinctive. Tay realized the elder was right. Hana hadn't planned to break their rules. She just fought the way humans always fought. With everything they had, humanity is granted limited access to coalition space, the elder finally declared. But you are marked as Category 5, unpredictable combat species. You will be watched carefully. Many in the coalition fear what they do not understand, and we do not understand humans. Back on the Times Resilience asterisk, Hana found Tay in his quarters. Did I do something wrong, Captain? Tay shook his head slowly. No. You did exactly what any human would do. You won. But I think we just scared an entire galactic empire. Because I threw dirt? Because you didn't follow the rules they've used for thousands of years. Because you adapted and improvised. Because you fought like a human. Tay looked out at the alien ship still surrounding them. They called us dangerous. Hana, not because we're strong or fast, but because we don't fight the way they expect. In a galaxy where everyone follows the same old patterns, we're something new, something they can't predict. Hana stood beside him. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I don't know yet, Tay admitted, but I think we're about to find out. The whole galaxy is watching us now, and they're all wondering the same thing. What else can humans do that we've never seen before? The Vrek ships moved away slowly, leaving the Times, Resilience Times, alone in space. Inside those alien vessels, commanders sent reports across the galaxy. A new species had arrived, a species that fought without honor, without predictability, without following any known pattern. The Galactic Coalition had just met humanity, and they were already afraid. The Coalition homeworld was called Primus. It orbited a blue star and held the greatest city in the galaxy. Towers reached into the clouds, ships flew between buildings, and representatives from 100 different species walked the streets. Captain Tay brought only a small delegation from Earth. Combat instructor Sok and field medic Yuna accompanied him to the Grand Council Hall. They walked through corridors filled with aliens who stared at them with curiosity and fear. They look at us like we're monsters, Yuna whispered to Sok. Siak kept his eyes forward. To them, maybe we are. The council chamber was enormous. Seats rose in circular levels, filled with aliens of every shape and size. At the center was a raised platform where Tay and his team stood. High above them sat the Council of Five, the leaders of the coalition. A tall, thin alien with blue skin spoke first. Humans, your species has caused much debate. Some believe you should be welcomed. Others believe you are too dangerous. We have decided on a test. Tay felt his jaw tighten. Another fight? The Grand Arena, the alien continued. For 10,000 years, it has been used to test warriors from across the galaxy. 2 of your people will face 4 of our champions. If you survive, humanity will be granted full membership. If you fall, humanity will be expelled from coalition space forever. That's not fair, Tay protested. 4 against 2? A reptilian alien with golden scales laughed. Fair? Your warrior defeated one of the Vreks, using trickery and dishonor. Now we will see how humans do against real fighters. Choose your 2 warriors. Tay looked at Sok and Yuna. Sok was their best fighter, trained in multiple combat styles. But Yuna? She was a medic, trained to save lives, not take them. I'll go, Siok said immediately. Yuna touched Tay's arm. I'll go with him. Yuna, you're not a soldier, Tay said quietly. She smiled sadly. I'm human. That's enough, isn't it? That's what scares them. Not our weapons or training. Just that we're human. The grand arena was even larger than the Vrex combat chamber. Thousands of aliens filled the seats, watching the sandy floor below. Siok and Yuna stood at one entrance, wearing simple combat suits. They had no weapons except what they could find in the arena. Stay close to me, Siok told Yuna. Watch for patterns. Every species has them. 4 gates opened around the arena. From each came a champion. The first was a Krell warrior, a massive creature covered in thick natural armor. He looked like a walking tank, slow but unstoppable. The Krell carried a huge hammer. The second was a Scivesh fighter, a thin, cat-like alien with 6 legs. She moved so fast she blurred, carrying razor-sharp blades on each limb. The third was a Torvok champion, a beast with 4 arms and muscles that rippled under green skin. Pure strength, designed to crush and break. The fourth was a Meshik warrior, a floating creature surrounded by energy shields. It could fire energy bolts from its tentacles. The arena voice boomed. Let the trial begin. The Meshik attacked first, firing energy bolts from a distance. Sok and Yuna separated immediately, running in different directions. The bolts hit the sand where they had been standing. They're using standard tactics, Sok called out. Distance fighter stays back. Speed fighter will try to flank. Armor fighter moves forward slowly. Strength fighter waits for us to get close. Yuna understood. These aliens had roles. They stuck to their roles. But humans? Humans adapted. The Scivesh fighter came at Yuna in a blur of speed and claws, but Yuna had been watching her movement pattern. The Scivesh always struck high, then low, then high again. A rhythm. A pattern. When the Scivesh came close, Yuna didn't try to match her speed. She just dropped to the ground and swept her legs. The Scivesh, moving too fast to adjust, tumbled over her. Yuna grabbed sand and threw it in the Sivish's multiple eyes. Meanwhile, Siok faced the armored Krell. The massive warrior swung his hammer, but Siok was already moving. He didn't try to block or deflect. He just stayed out of range, letting the Krell waste energy. Your armor is strong, Siok shouted, but it's heavy. How long can you keep swinging? The Krell roared and charged. Sok ran toward a pile of broken stones from previous arena battles. He grabbed a sharp piece and threw it not at the Krell's armor, but at the joint where his arm met his shoulder. The stone wedged in the gap, making it painful for the Krell to lift his hammer. The crowd murmured. Using the environment was allowed, but no one ever thought to do it. The Torvok champion charged at Yuna now. Seeing her as the weaker target, his 4 arms reached for her. Yuna had been a medic for 12 years. She knew biology. She knew anatomy. She had studied every alien species file on the way to Primus. As the Torvok grabbed her, Yuna pressed her fingers into specific points on his neck. She knew where his nerve clusters were. The Torvok's eyes went wide, his whole body locked up, paralyzed by pain signals flooding his system. Sorry, Yuna said, rolling away. But every body has weak points. The arena went silent. A medic had just defeated a champion warrior using medicine as a weapon. Siok and Yuna regrouped, standing back to back as the Meshik continued firing energy bolts, and the injured Krell and Sivish circled them. We need to work together, Sok said. On 3, run left. I'll go right. Meet at the north wall. Why? Yuna asked. Just trust me. They split apart. The Meshik, floating in the center, turned to track Siok as the bigger threat. But that meant his back was to Yuna. She grabbed a stone and threw it. Her aim wasn't perfect, but it didn't need to be. The stone hit one of the Meshik's shield projectors, disrupting it for just a moment. That moment was enough. Siok had looped around and grabbed a long pole from an old weapon rack. He threw it like a spear through the gap in the Meshik's shield. The creature fell from the air. Stunned, the Krell and Sivish looked at each other, then at the humans. They had never seen two warriors coordinate like this, communicate, adapt, change tactics mid-battle. "We yield," the Krell said finally. "This is not combat, we understand." The arena erupted in noise. Some aliens cheered. Others shouted in anger. The Council of Five stood up, looking down at Siok and Yuna. The blue-skinned alien spoke. "You have proven that humans can fight. But you have also proven something more concerning. You analyze. You communicate. You exploit weakness. You use your medic as a warrior, and your warrior as a strategist. You have no fixed roles. No predictable patterns." Tay, watching from a private box, spoke into a communicator. "Is that a problem?" "It is unprecedented," the alien replied. "Every species in the galaxy has their way of fighting. It is part of who they are. But humans? You can be anything. You can fight any way. This makes you the most dangerous species we have ever encountered." A reptilian council member stood. "I vote to reject humanity's membership. They are too unpredictable, too dangerous. They could upset the balance of power." Another alien, one that looked like a floating jellyfish, disagreed. "But imagine if they were our allies, instead of our enemies. Imagine their ability to adapt serving the coalition." The debate raged for hours. Finally, the head of the council, an ancient being that looked like living crystal, raised a hand for silence. "Humanity is granted provisional membership in the Galactic Coalition. However, you will be restricted from military operations for now. We must study you more, understand you more, and perhaps learn from you." Back on the transport to the Times. Resilience asterisk. Yuna looked at her hands. They were still shaking. "I hurt someone. I used my medical knowledge to hurt someone." Sok put a hand on her shoulder. "You survived. That's what humans do. We use everything we have. Everything we know. We don't limit ourselves to one way of thinking." Captain Tay joined them. "The Council is afraid of us. But they're also fascinated. They've been fighting the same way for thousands of years. We've shown them something new, something they never imagined." "What happens now?" Yuna asked. Tay looked out the window at the massive city of Primus below. "Now we prove we're not just dangerous. We prove we can be trusted. But I have a feeling that's going to be harder than any arena fight." In the council chambers, after the humans left, the representatives talked in worried tones. They had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years with their traditions and honor codes. But now, a new species had arrived. A species that didn't care about tradition. A species that fought to win, no matter what it took. The humans had just shown the galaxy that there was more than one way to fight, and that scared everyone. The message came in the middle of the night cycle on the human colony of New Haven. Colonial Defense Coordinator Day was sleeping when his communicator screamed an emergency alert. "All defense personnel report immediately. This is not a drill." Day ran to the command center in his sleep clothes. The main screen showed what every human feared. Ships, dozens of them. Vrex, Empire, warships, approaching the colony fast. "Why are they here?" asked one of the technicians. "Because we humiliated them," Day said grimly. "In the arena. In front of the whole galaxy. And now they want revenge." A transmission came through. The Vrex commander's insect face filled the screen. "Humans of New Haven. The Vrex Empire declares war on your species. The Council did not authorize this. But we do not need authorization. You have insulted our honor. You fight like cowards. We will show you what real warriors can do." The transmission ended. 20 Vrex warships moved into attack formation. Day looked around at his small team. New Haven was a mining colony. They had 3 cargo ships, 2 shuttles, and some mining equipment. They had no warships, no military base, no trained soldiers except for a handful of security guards. "Get me Engineer Nari," Day ordered, "and someone wake up every pilot we have." 10 minutes later, Nari arrived, still pulling on her work jacket. "What do you need?" Day pulled up schematics of their cargo ships. "I need you to turn these into weapons. We have 30 minutes before the Vreks are in firing range." Nari stared at him. "You want me to build warships in 30 minutes? I want you to build anything that can fight. I don't care if it's pretty or proper. I just need it to work." Nari's face changed. She stopped looking scared and started looking focused. "Okay. Get me every welder and mechanic in the colony. And bring me all the mining explosives we have." The Vreks fleet approached in perfect formation, beautiful, organized, exactly as their honor code demanded. They expected the humans to either surrender or meet them in open battle. Instead, the 3 human cargo ships came out to meet them, looking slow and clumsy. The Vreks commander laughed. "They send cargo ships? This will be over quickly." But as the Vreks moved closer, something felt wrong. The human ships weren't moving in formation. They were spreading out randomly. One ship went behind a large asteroid, another moved too close to the planet's atmosphere, the third just stopped completely, floating dead in space. "Odd tactics," the Vreks second-in-command noted. "But meaningless. Fire all weapons." The Vreks opened fire on the stopped cargo ship. Their energy weapons hit it perfectly. The ship exploded in a massive fireball. The Vreks cheered. Then the explosion kept growing. And growing. The cargo ship had been filled with mining explosives. The blast wave hit the closest Vreks ships, damaging their shields. "Retreat to safe distance," the commander ordered. But as they moved back, the asteroid suddenly exploded. The human ship hadn't been hiding. It had been placing more explosives. Rock and metal debris hit 3 more Vreks ships. "This is not honorable combat," the commander screamed. The 3rd human cargo ship rose from the planet's atmosphere. Attached to it were dozens of mining drones, each one now carrying an explosive charge. They flew at the Vreks formation like a swarm of angry bees. The Vreks ships fired desperately, but there were too many drones. They swarmed over the Vreks vessels, attaching to their hulls. Then they detonated. Aboard New Haven, Nari watched her screens. "Day. It's working. They can't handle targets that don't follow battle patterns. Send in the shuttles," Day ordered. 2 human shuttles, small and fast, came around the planet's dark side. They didn't attack. They just flew between the Vreks ships, making it hard for the enemy to fire without hitting their own vessels. "Cowards!" the Vreks commander shouted. "Stand and fight!" But the humans didn't stand. They moved. They hid. They used every advantage. One shuttle even flew directly at a Vreks ship, and when the enemy vessel tried to shoot it down, the shuttle dodged at the last second. The Vreks ship's weapons hit another Vreks ship behind it. In the confusion, Day launched his secret weapon. Nari had spent the last 20 minutes writing a computer virus. It was simple, but effective. It targeted the Vreks battle computers, which predicted enemy movements based on standard combat patterns. The virus told the Vreks computers that humans would follow normal tactics: attack from the front, hold formation, fight with honor. But humans didn't do any of those things. The Vreks targeting system started suggesting the wrong responses, confusing their own gunners. After 2 hours of chaos, the Vreks commander had lost 6 ships and damaged 8 more. He hadn't destroyed a single human vessel since the first one, which had been a trap anyway. "Retreat," he finally ordered. "These creatures fight without honor, without decency. We cannot predict them. We cannot fight them." The Vreks fleet limped away into deep space. On New Haven, the colonists celebrated. They had won against impossible odds, but Day didn't celebrate. He knew what would happen next. 3 days later, the Coalition Council summoned Captain Tay to Primus again. This time, the mood was very different. The Vreks attacked without authorization, the crystal being said. But they attacked because they felt humiliated by humans. "This colony's defense has made things worse." "Worse?" Tay said angrily. "We defended ourselves. What were we supposed to do? Let them destroy us?" A large alien with tentacles spoke. "You were supposed to fight properly. Instead, You used deception. You turned cargo ships into bombs. You made your enemy destroy their own vessels. You used tactics we have never seen in 10,000 years of galactic warfare. That's the point, Tay said. You've been fighting the same way for 10,000 years. On Earth, we've been fighting each other for just as long. And every time we fight, we invent new ways to do it. Better ways. More effective ways. The blue-skinned alien looked troubled. That is what concerns us. Earth had wars? Multiple wars? Hundreds, Tay admitted. Maybe thousands. Big wars, small wars. We fought each other over land, resources, ideas, religions. We got very good at warfare because we practiced so much. The council chamber went silent. Finally, the reptilian member spoke quietly. Do you understand what you are saying? In the coalition, species fight over territory disputes every few centuries. But humans? You fought each other constantly. You developed warfare not as a tool, but as a science. A study. This makes you more than dangerous. It makes you unnatural. Captain Tay took a deep breath. Maybe it does. But it also means we know every dirty trick, every clever strategy, every way to win when you're outnumbered and outgunned. The Vrex came to destroy a peaceful mining colony with 20 warships. We had 3 cargo ships and some mining equipment. But we won because we thought differently. We adapted. We improvised. You made warfare look like chaos, the crystal being said. And chaos defeats order. That is a frightening lesson. A small alien, looking like a furry ball with eyes, spoke up. But imagine if that chaos was on our side. Imagine if humans taught us their ways. We could finally have new strategies, new approaches, new hope against enemies we thought were too powerful. The council debated for hours. Finally, they reached a decision. Humanity's defense of New Haven is recognized as legitimate, the crystal being announced. But you must understand. You have changed something fundamental. For 10,000 years, warfare in the galaxy followed rules. Honor, patterns, predictability. You have shown that these rules can be broken. This knowledge cannot be unlearned. The galaxy is different now because of you. Tay nodded slowly. We didn't come to your galaxy to start wars. We came to explore, to find friends, to build a new life. Perhaps, the alien said. But you brought war with you anyway. Not because you wanted to fight, but because you know how to fight better than anyone else. That knowledge alone makes you the most dangerous species in the coalition. Back on the Times, Resilience Asterisk, Day joined Tay in the captain's quarters. Did we do the right thing? Day asked. Using those tactics? Tay stared out at the stars. We survived. On Earth, that's always been the measure of right and wrong. But here, in this galaxy, I think we just taught everyone that the old ways of fighting don't work anymore. We showed them that war doesn't have to be honorable or predictable. It just has to be won. Will they hate us for it? Some will. Others will want to learn from us. But either way, we can't take it back. The galaxy knows now. Humans don't fight like anyone else. And that makes us something new, something feared, something that might change everything. In secret channels across the galaxy, military commanders watched recordings of the New Haven battle. They saw humans turn cargo ships into weapons, use asteroids as bombs, and make their enemies shoot each other by accident. They saw warfare conducted not with honor, but with pure effectiveness. And in every corner of the coalition, the same thought occurred to different species at the same time. What if we had to fight humans? What if they were our enemy instead of our ally? The answer scared them all. Because against an enemy that could be anything, do anything, think of anything, how could you prepare? How could you defend? You couldn't. That was the terrifying truth. You couldn't predict chaos. And humans were masters of chaos. Jin stood at the viewing window of the transport ship as it approached Earth. He was a xenoanthropologist, someone who studied alien cultures. The Coalition Council had given him one mission: understand humans, figure out why they fight the way they do, learn what makes them so dangerous. Jin had studied 73 different species in his career. He had lived with peaceful traders, aggressive hunters, and isolated philosophers. But humans, they worried him in a way no other species had. The ship landed in a city called Seoul. Jin stepped out into air that smelled strange, full of unfamiliar scents. Humans walked past him, some staring, most ignoring him. They were so small compared to many galactic species: no natural armor, no claws, no weapons built into their bodies. They looked weak, but Jin knew better. The most dangerous things often looked harmless. A human woman waited for him at the landing pad. She wore simple clothes and had dark hair pulled back from her face. She smiled and extended her hand. A human greeting gesture. "Welcome to Earth. I'm Leah. I'm a historian specializing in military history. I'll be your guide." Jin touched her hand awkwardly. "Thank you. I have many questions." "I'm sure you do," Leah said. "Where would you like to start?" "Your wars," Jin said immediately. "The Council said Earth had many wars. I need to understand them." Leah's smile faded a little. "That's a big topic. We have museums, archives, libraries full of information about our wars. It might take years to go through it all." "I have time," Jin said. "The galaxy needs to understand what they are dealing with." The first place Leah took Jin was a museum dedicated to what humans called World War II. Jin walked through rooms filled with weapons, uniforms, photographs, and documents. He saw images of destruction on a scale he had never imagined. "How many died in this war?" Jin asked quietly. "About 70 million people," Leah answered. Jin felt his heart sink. 70 million? Leah looked at a photograph of a destroyed city. Different groups wanted different things. Some wanted territory. Some wanted resources. Some wanted to control others. Some were fighting against that control. It was complicated. "But 70 million deaths," Jin repeated. "And this was just one war?" "One of our bigger ones," Leah admitted. "But not the only one. Humans have fought each other throughout our entire history." Jin spent a week in that museum alone. He learned about strategy and tactics. He learned about weapons that could kill thousands at once. He learned about codes and code breakers, spies and secrets, betrayals and alliances. What disturbed him most was how much humans had studied warfare. There were entire books about battle tactics, schools that taught military strategy, games that simulated combat. Humans didn't just fight wars. They thought about wars. They analyzed them. They learned from them. "In the Coalition," Jin told Leah one evening, "when two species have a conflict, they fight until one wins or they reach a compromise. Then they stop. They don't think about the fight afterward. They just move on." Leah nodded. "Humans don't work that way. After every war, we study what happened, what worked, what didn't. We write books about it. We teach it in schools. We make sure the next generation learns from our mistakes and our successes. So, every generation of humans becomes better at warfare? In a way, yes. We build on what came before. That's how we advance." Jin found that thought terrifying. Next, Leah took Jin to a military academy. Young humans were being trained as soldiers. Jin watched them practice combat maneuvers, study strategy, and learn about weapons systems. "How old are they?" Jin asked. 18 to 22, mostly," Leah said. "So young," Jin murmured. "In the Coalition, warriors are chosen from those who show natural fighting ability. They train for a few months, and then serve when needed. But you spend years training your young people for war?" "We have to," Leah explained. "Modern warfare is complicated. It's not just about being strong or fast. It's about understanding technology, strategy, logistics, psychology, communication. A good soldier needs to think, not just fight." Jin met with some of the students. A young man named Minho explained his studies. I'm learning about asymmetric warfare. That's when a smaller, weaker force fights a larger, stronger one. Why would anyone do that? Jin asked. If you are weaker, you should surrender or retreat. Minho looked confused by the question. But that's when strategy matters most. If you're weaker, you can't win by fighting normally. You have to be smarter. Use terrain. Use surprise. Make the enemy's strength work against them. There are hundreds of examples throughout history where the underdog won because they thought differently. Jin realized something then. Every species in the coalition believed that strength determined victory. The strong won, the weak lost. Simple. But humans had discovered something else. Intelligence could beat strength. Strategy could beat power. Will could beat numbers. That night, Jin read a human book called The Art of War. It was thousands of years old, written by a man named Sun Tzu. Jin read one passage over and over. All warfare is based on deception. Deception. The word felt wrong to Jin. In the coalition, deception was dishonorable. Warriors fought openly, honestly. But humans? They had built an entire philosophy around tricking their enemies. Why is this considered wisdom? Jin asked Leah the next day. This man teaches dishonesty in combat. Leah sat down across from him. Because honesty gets you killed. If your enemy knows what you're going to do, they can stop you. But if you can mislead them, confuse them, make them think you're doing one thing when you're really doing another, you gain an advantage. But that's not fair. War isn't fair, Leah said simply. It's war. The goal is to win and survive. Everything else is secondary. Jin spent another week studying human military history. He learned about guerrilla warfare, where small groups used hit-and-run tactics against larger armies. He learned about siege warfare, where patience and planning mattered more than direct combat. He learned about naval battles, air battles, space battles that humans had imagined before they even left their planet. He learned about something humans called total war, where entire societies mobilized for conflict. Factories making weapons. Scientists developing new technologies. Citizens growing food for soldiers. Everyone involved, everyone contributing. In the coalition, Jin explained to Leah, wars are fought by warriors. The rest of society continues normally. But humans? You turn your entire civilization into a war machine when needed. When survival is at stake, Leah said, everything else becomes less important. We learned that the hard way. Many times. But what truly shocked Jin was when Leah showed him human entertainment. Movies about war. Video games where players commanded armies. Books with military heroes. Sports that simulated combat. You make entertainment from warfare? Jin asked, disturbed. We process our history through stories, Leah explained. We remember. We honor those who fought. We examine what happened through different perspectives. Sometimes we glamorize it too much, yes. But mostly, we're trying to understand ourselves. Jin met with Captain Tay in his final week on Earth. They sat in a quiet garden, away from the noise of the city. Have you learned what you came to learn? Tay asked. Jin was quiet for a long time. I think so. I understand now why the Council fears humanity. You are dangerous. Not because you are strong or violent. You are dangerous because warfare is part of your identity. It shaped your evolution. It influenced your culture. It taught you to think strategically about everything. Is that such a bad thing? Perhaps not, Jin admitted. But it makes you different from everyone else. In the coalition, species fight when they must. But humans? You study fighting even in times of peace. You prepare for wars that haven't happened yet. You think about conflict in ways we never imagined. Tay nodded slowly. On Earth, we have a saying. If you want peace, prepare for war. We learned that if you're not ready to defend yourself, someone will eventually take advantage of that. But we have had peace in the coalition for thousands of years, Jin protested. Because everyone follows the same rules, Tay said. Everyone fights the same way. It's predictable, stable, but what happens when someone breaks those rules? What happens when a new threat arrives that doesn't care about your traditions? Jin didn't have an answer. That's why we're dangerous, Tay continued. Not because we want to fight, but because we're ready to fight in any way necessary. We don't limit ourselves to one strategy or one method. We use everything. We adapt to anything. In a galaxy where everyone else follows the same patterns, that makes us look like chaos. Jin returned to Primus with his report. He stood before the council and told them everything he had learned. When he finished, the chamber was silent. Finally, the crystal being spoke. So humans have spent their entire history learning to wage war? Not just to wage it, Jin corrected. To understand it, to master it, to turn it into a science. Every human general stands on the shoulders of thousands of years of military knowledge. Every human soldier has been trained with tactics refined through countless battles. They don't just fight. They fight with the accumulated wisdom of their entire species. Then we can never match them in warfare, the reptilian alien said quietly. Perhaps not in unpredictability, Jin agreed. But I learned something else. Humans fight so well because they had to. They fought each other for so long that they became experts at it. But now? Now they want peace. They want to build, not destroy. They came to our galaxy to explore, not conquer. But they could conquer, another alien said. If they wanted to. Jin thought about all the humans he had met. Leah, who taught him history. Minho, who studied to protect others. Captain Tay, who wanted understanding between species. Yes, Jin said finally. They could. That's what makes them dangerous. But it's also what makes them valuable, because if they chose to fight for us instead of against us, there would be no enemy we couldn't face. The Council had much to think about. The warning came from the edge of Coalition space. A small research station simply stopped transmitting. Then another. Then 3 more. All in the same sector. The Coalition Council sent scout ships to investigate. Only one returned, badly damaged. The pilot, a civish named Quickclaw, could barely speak. They're back, she gasped. The Void Collective. They're back. The council chamber erupted in panic. Captain Tay, attending as humanity's representative, looked around in confusion. What is the Void Collective? The crystal being, who had lived for thousands of years, answered with a voice full of old fear. An enemy we thought was gone forever. Machines. Not built by anyone, but evolved somehow. They think as one mind. They consume resources to build more of themselves. They are perfect, logical, unstoppable. How did you defeat them before? Tay asked. We didn't, the being admitted. 3,000 years ago, they invaded Coalition space. We lost half our territory before they simply left. We never knew why. We hoped they were gone for good, and now they're back. Within a week, the Void Collective had taken 20 star systems. Coalition fleets engaged them, following all the standard tactics. But the Void ships moved in perfect coordination. They calculated every possible response and countered it. They learned from every battle and adapted their strategies instantly. The Coalition was losing badly. Tay watched recordings of the battles. The Void ships were geometric and precise. They moved in mathematical patterns. They fired with perfect timing. Their tactics were flawless because they were calculated by a hive mind that processed information faster than any individual brain. They're winning because they're perfect, Tay said to himself. Perfect coordination. Perfect predictions. Perfect responses. Then he smiled. But perfection has a weakness. Tay requested an emergency meeting with the council. Many members were reluctant. Humanity was still new. Still distrusted. But they were desperate. You want to lead our defense? The reptilian alien asked skeptically. You have only 3 human ships in Coalition space. What can you do against thousands of void vessels? I don't need to fight them alone, Tay said. But I do need command authority. Let me coordinate the Coalition fleets. Let me teach your commanders how to fight differently. Why should we trust you? Because the Void Collective fights perfectly, and perfect tactics can be predicted. But humans? We don't fight perfectly. We fight chaotically, and chaos is the one thing a logical machine mind cannot fully calculate. The council debated for 2 hours before finally agreeing. They had nothing to lose. They were already losing. Tae immediately called for 2 people, combat instructor Hyun and intelligence coordinator Ara. Both had volunteered to travel to Coalition space to help humanity's integration. "I need you to teach alien commanders how to think like humans," Tae told them. "We have 1 week before the void reaches Primus." Hyun looked doubtful. "Captain, these species have been fighting the same way for thousands of years. We can't change their entire military doctrine in a week." "We don't need to change everything," Tae said. "We just need to introduce enough unpredictability that the void can't calculate our responses perfectly." Ara understood immediately. "We don't need them to fight like humans. We just need them to fight less like machines." Over the next 7 days, Hyun and Ara worked with military commanders from across the coalition. They taught simple concepts that seemed strange to the aliens. "Don't always attack from the expected angle," Hyun explained to a group of Krell commanders. "Sometimes attack from above. Sometimes from below. Change it each time." "But that violates optimal attack vectors," a Krell protested. "Exactly. The void calculates optimal vectors. If you're not optimal, you're harder to predict." Ara taught communication protocols. "Don't follow strict formations. Let individual captains make their own decisions during battle. Make small mistakes on purpose. The void expects perfect coordination. Give them imperfect coordination and they won't know how to respond efficiently." "You're teaching us to fight worse?" a Vrex commander asked, confused. "I'm teaching you to fight human," Ara corrected. "Worse by your standards, but unpredictable by theirs." The Coalition fleet assembled at the edge of Primus system. 500 ships from a dozen different species. Against them came the Void Collective. 800 geometric vessels, moving in perfect formation. Captain Tae stood in the command center with the council watching. He opened communication channels to all ships. "Coalition fleet, this is Captain Tae. I know this is strange for you. I know you've been taught to follow patterns, maintain formation, fight with honor. Today, I'm asking you to forget all of that. Today, I'm asking you to be unpredictable. Make decisions that don't make perfect sense. Take risks, make mistakes. Be individuals, not a unified force. This will feel wrong, it should feel wrong. But it's the only way to beat an enemy that calculates perfection." The Void Fleet approached. Their ships moved in a geometric grid, covering all possible attack vectors. They were beautiful in their precision. "All ships," Tae said calmly. "Ignore your assigned positions. Choose your own place in the formation. On my mark. Now." The Coalition fleet broke apart. Ships moved to random positions. Some went high, some low, some forward, some back. There was no pattern, no logic, just chaos. The Void Fleet paused. For 3 seconds, they didn't move. Their hive mind was processing this unexpected disorder, recalculating thousands of response scenarios. 3 seconds was enough. "Attack now," Tae ordered. "All ships, fire at will. Don't coordinate, just shoot." The Coalition fleet opened fire from 100 different angles with no coordination. Some shots hit their targets. Some missed. Some accidentally forced void ships into the paths of other shots. It was messy. It was inefficient. It was effective. The void ships tried to adjust, but they were programmed to respond to organized tactics. They moved to counterattacks that came from logical directions. But the Coalition wasn't being logical anymore. A Krell ship charged straight at a void vessel, ignoring damage to its own shields. The void ship calculated it would pull away before collision, but the Krell captain, remembering Hyun's advice to do something stupid occasionally, didn't pull away. The ships collided. Both were destroyed. "Excellent sacrifice," Tae called out, even though his heart hurt for the lost crew. "All ships, be brave and reckless. Make them question every calculation. The battle raged for 2 hours. The coalition lost ships, but they were taking void vessels with them. More importantly, they were causing confusion in the hive mind. Ara monitored the void communication patterns. "Captain, they're trying to establish a pattern to our attacks. But every time they think they've figured it out, someone does something different." "Good," Tay said. "That means we're winning. Now for the real plan. Hyun, prepare the false retreat." Hyun smiled. "My favorite human tactic." Tay opened channels to half the coalition fleet. "All designated ships. Start retreating. Make it look desperate. Make it look like we're losing." The selected ships turned and fled. The Void Fleet, calculating victory, pursued them. Their perfect formation shifted to chase mode. "Now," Tay whispered to Ara, "send the signal." From behind Primus's largest moon, 200 coalition ships emerged. They had been hiding there, powered down, waiting. The Void Collective sensors had not detected them because they weren't broadcasting any signals. The hidden fleet struck the Void's rear formations. The Void ships tried to turn, to respond, but they were caught between two forces. The retreating ships suddenly turned around and rejoined the fight. The Void hive mind had never encountered a feigned retreat before. It had calculated that fleeing ships were defeated ships. It had never considered that defeat could be deception. In the chaos of the three-sided attack, Hyun noticed something. "Captain, the Void ships are all maintaining constant communication with each other. That big ship in the center, it's broadcasting more than the others." The command node, Tay realized. That's where the hive mind coordinates everything. If we destroy it, the whole fleet might lose coordination. Ara finished. Tay opened a channel to just 3 ships. The Times, Resilience Times, and 2 coalition volunteers. Special attack team. Target the central command vessel. Everyone else, keep them distracted. The 3 ships dove through the battle, dodging fire and friendly vessels alike. They flew in spirals, loops, and unpredictable patterns. The Void ships tried to intercept them, but their weapons kept missing because the attack team wasn't flying in calculable trajectories. When they reached the command node, all 3 ships fired simultaneously at the same spot. The Void vessel's shields collapsed. A second volley pierced its hull. The giant ship began to break apart. Across the battlefield, every Void vessel stopped moving for exactly 5 seconds. Their coordination was broken. The hive mind was disrupted. "All ships, attack now while they're confused," Tay ordered. The coalition fleet struck with everything they had. Without coordination, the Void ships were just individual vessels. They were still dangerous, but they weren't perfect anymore. Slowly, the tide turned. Void ships began to retreat. Then more retreated. Finally, the entire surviving fleet withdrew from Primus system, leaving behind the wreckage of 300 of their vessels. The coalition had lost 200 ships, but they had won. In the aftermath, Captain Tay stood before the council once more, the crystal being looked at him with something like respect. "You defeated an enemy we thought was invincible. Not with superior weapons or greater numbers, but with chaos, with unpredictability, with tactics that made no sense to a logical mind." Tay bowed slightly. "The Void Collective fights with perfection, but perfection is predictable. Humans learned long ago that sometimes the best strategy is one that makes no sense. Sometimes, you have to be willing to look foolish, to make mistakes, to abandon the optimal path. Because when you do, you become impossible to predict." The reptilian alien stood. "I was wrong about humanity. I said you were too dangerous to have as members of the coalition. But today, you proved that you are too dangerous not to have as members. You are terrifying allies. But you would be nightmare enemies." The council voted unanimously. Humanity was granted full membership in the Galactic Coalition. But there was more. "We have one additional request," the crystal being said. "We ask that Earth establish a military academy open to all coalition species. We ask that humans teach our warriors your ways. Not to replace our traditions, but to add to them. To give us the tools to face any threat, no matter how unusual. Tay looked surprised. You want us to teach the galaxy how to fight like humans? We want you to teach us how to think like humans. The being corrected. Because in a universe of countless threats, the ability to adapt is the ultimate weapon. 6 months later, the Coalition Military Academy opened on Earth. Jin was there for the inaugural ceremony. He watched as young warriors from across the galaxy learned human tactics, human strategies, human ways of thinking about warfare. Instructor Hyun taught them about asymmetric warfare. Ara taught them about intelligence gathering and deception. Seok taught them about teamwork and communication. But most importantly, they taught them to question, to improvise, to adapt, to think for themselves, instead of following ancient patterns. Jin found Captain Tay watching a practice exercise where a Krell cadet was arguing with a Vrex cadet about the best approach to a tactical problem. They're learning, Jin said softly. You're making them more like humans. Tay shook his head. No. We're making them more like themselves. More individual. More willing to think and question. Every species has the potential for adaptability. They just forgot it by following traditions for too long. The galaxy will never be the same, Jin observed. No. Tay agreed. It won't. For 10,000 years, the Coalition maintained peace through predictability. Everyone knew how everyone else would fight. It was stable, but it was also stagnant. Now, we've introduced chaos, change, growth. It will be harder, more complicated, but also more alive. Jin watched the cadets practicing. Some were good at human tactics. Some struggled. But all of them were trying. All of them were learning to think differently. The galaxy was afraid of humans, Jin said. They called you the most dangerous fighters in the galaxy. And were they right? Tay asked. Jin thought for a long moment. Yes. But not because you're violent or aggressive. You're dangerous because you never stop learning. Never stop adapting. Never stop finding new ways to survive. That's not a threat. That's hope. Because if humans can learn to survive anything, and if humans can teach others to do the same, then maybe the galaxy can survive anything too. Tay smiled. That's all we ever wanted. Not to conquer. Not to dominate. Just to survive. And to help others survive. If that makes us dangerous, I can live with that. High above Earth, the stars shine down on a changing galaxy. A galaxy where one small, weak species had taught everyone that strength wasn't about armor, or weapons, or ancient traditions. Strength was about the willingness to adapt, to change, to think in new ways. The galaxy had learned why humans were the most dangerous fighters. Not because they were the strongest, but because they refused to let anything, even perfection itself, predict or limit them. And that unpredictability, that chaos, that human spirit of adaptation that was the greatest weapon the galaxy had ever known.